Now we're recording. Okay, hello. I'm Casey.
And I'm Fallon.
And we're going to try to do this in sync, but it never works out when we record this way. 1, 2, 3. We are under the darkness. Yeah, it never works. I don't know why we even try it. Doesn't work. So today we are going to be coming at you with our first case out of Hawaii.
Hawaii.
And it's a sad one. It's a tragic one. Sorry to do that, but that's kind of what this podcast is.
Yeah.
We cover some fun cases, but we cover some sad ones too, and that's what today's is going to be about. But before we get into that, I would like to say Fallon and I attended a supernatural convention this weekend, and I just want to say thank you to if anybody from creation ever watches this ever for always going so above and beyond to make sure that your fans have a good time at those things. You guys really do go all out. You work really hard, and just know that even though in the moments it's stressful, most of the people really appreciate all the dedication you guys put into it, because it's a lot. Yeah. And kudos to y'all, because I don't know that I could do it. It's stressful. Yeah. People are stressful. So anyway, thank you guys for that. And back to our podcast. And today's case, which I don't think I mentioned earlier, is going to be about these Xerox murders, which is a really, really, like I said before, tragic case. So before we get into that, let's do a fun fact, because we're going to be really sad after the fun fact. So, fun fact, golf balls were originally called featheries because they were made out of leather and feather. That rhymed. Leather and feather. Anyways.
Oh, didn't know it.
Yeah, that fact was true from the 1600s until the 19th century.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Seemed to work for a really long time. I wonder why they changed it.
I don't know.
I mean, not that I'm complaining, because, my husband and I play golf sometimes, and I very much appreciate my golf balls. But I've never played with a feathery, so I don't have a comparison. Maybe the feathery is better.
Yeah, I was going to say, that I like the name better than I do golf balls. Featheries.
Featheries. It's very, like, Harry Potter-ish, right?
Yeah.
Like, what were the little flying balls in Harry Potter? What was that called?
Aren't they like golden snitches or something?
Something like that, yeah. Some kind of also fun name.
Yeah.
I just feel like you could always come up with something fun for balls, right?
Yeah, always.
All right, so now we're going to dive into the tragedy of today's case. So November 2nd, 1999 is forever cemented as one of the most tragic days in Hawaii history. It marks the date of what is known as the Xerox Murders. Mm-hmm. First, we'll discuss the person who committed the horrifically tragic crime that took the life of 7 innocent people and changed the lives of so many others. And then we'll talk about the events that took place that day, and then we'll talk about the victims. Byron Koji Yasugi was born in 1959 in Honolulu. He attended Roosevelt High School and was a member of the JROTC for the Army in the school he attended, as well as being part of the school's rifle team. And for those of you who don't know, JROTC stands for Junior Reserve Officers Training Corps. So
I was just about to ask you, what does that stand for?
Yeah, so he was being trained basically on like a mini training for what the military gets trained for, kind of, essentially. And it's noted that in 1977, after Byron graduated from high school, he had gotten into a wreck where he hit his head on the windshield. And according to his brother Dennis, Byron was never really the same after that. However, his father would later kind of disagree by saying that he thought Byron didn't change until he started working at Xerox.
Mm.
And Byron also had some pretty notable hobbies, one of which was collecting pew-pews.
Mm.
Um, he started working for Xerox in 1984 as a technician, and according to his father, 4 years after Byron began working there, he also began complaining about a pain in his head, as to which his dad said Byron would always identify as it feeling like something was poking him in the head.
I wonder if, like, after the accident, if something got stuck.
Maybe. I don't know, because it didn't happen like for so long after. Or
Yeah,
maybe he was feeling it and he just didn't say anything about it, or maybe it just got more intense over the years.
yeah, it's possible.
I don't know. But Byron would also end up getting moved to a different work group than the one he started in at Xerox, and after that, he began claiming he was being harassed, and he started accusing fellow technicians of tampering with products.
Mm.
This led Byron to feeling a little bit isolated and bullied, like the other technicians were somehow conspiring against him. And it would end up getting reported that Byron was verbally threatening the lives of his coworkers. And he ended up having an outburst, so to speak, in 1993, where he kicked in an elevator door and threatened a supervisor.
Golly, aren't those elevator doors pretty sturdy?
Yeah, they're pretty, I would imagine they're pretty hard to kick in.
Yeah.
So he had to put a lot of force behind that, I would imagine.
Yeah.
So after he did that, Byron was arrested for it, and he was charged with third-degree criminal property damage, and he was required to receive a psychiatric evaluation and take anger management classes. It was
Okay.
discovered by a psychiatrist that Byron suffered from a delusional disorder and paranoia, but somehow determined him to not be dangerous, despite him admitting to hearing voices in his head and seeing things. He mentioned seeing something that he continuously referred to as shadow people, and was so convinced of it that in 1997, his father would actually have the house blessed in an attempt to bring his son some peace of mind. And
Wow.
1997 was the same year that his father, now at this point, started recommending to him that he revisited the psychiatrist. But Byron refused to go, feeling like when he went the first time, he didn't really get any help.
Okay. Mm.
And it would later be reported that around 1995 was the first time that his coworkers had actually heard him begin to threaten a mass shooting if the company ever tried to fire him. Then there was the fact that Byron was trained to service a very specific type of photocopier. The company wanted to replace this copier, as companies do when new products come out. They want to, they want the best of the best. They want to
Yeah.
upgrade. So they wanted to replace this copier with a more modern and more efficient machine. Byron initially refused to learn the new machine altogether. However, Byron's manager ended up basically telling Byron that he had to learn it, and the day that he told him that he had to learn it was November 1st, 1999. Now, this sent Byron into the mindset that if he didn't learn this new machine that he had zero desire to learn, he would be fired. And still having no desire to learn the new machine, based on the fear that the machine was going to be too advanced for him, and remembering what he had threatened previously, should he feel like he's being put in a position of being fired, um, that kind of brings us to the tragic events of this case. So sadly, that would be the straw that broke the camel's back. That kind of sent the trajectory forward on what happens next. So that was November 1st. Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, but wouldn't that, like, technically be his fault? Because one, they didn't fire him, right?
No, they didn't actually fire him, no. But, I think that maybe he felt like he was being given an ultimatum, like he had to do it or else, I think is how he interpreted what his supervisor was saying, even though it would later come out that that's not what the supervisor was saying.
Oh, okay.
But that's how, in his mind, he interpreted what was being said to him. So, in his mind, they were essentially threatening to fire him if he didn't do this thing that he really didn't want to do.
Gotcha. Okay.
And again, that was on November 1st, 1999. So
Okay.
that brings us to November 2nd, 1999. So literally the next day.
Mm.
By 8 a.m., the bulk of the employees had already gotten to work because there was a team meeting for the repairmen in the department, which was set to be held in the conference room. Unfortunately, this is around the same time that Byron also made it to work, and I think I already actually got there around 7:45. But either way, he showed up knowing exactly what he planned to do, and he was fully prepared to do it.
Mm.
So let's go over the events of the day in blocks of time throughout the day in which they happened. And we're going to do that starting with 8 a.m. That is when a fellow coworker by the name of Randall Shin reported hearing the first gunshot. When he looked to investigate the sound, sadly, he sees Ronald Kawami slumped over in his chair. Then he sees Jason Balatico desperately trying to leave the conference room, but then Shin heard 2 more gunshots. Then he sees Balatico bleeding as he falls to the floor.
Mm.
Immediately after, Shin sees Byron standing in the doorway of the room, and Byron walks away. Shin seizes the opportunity to escape and flees out of the office down the stairs. By 8:05 a.m., people from the businesses surrounding the Xerox building have heard the gunshots, and Catherine Ling reported seeing a man she recognized as a Xerox worker calmly walking from the back entrance of the building. And meanwhile, Angel Arias, who worked for a local company called Dangling Mango Media, first heard the gunshots, then saw a Xerox employee as they ran outside, only to hear the worker yelling, quote, "They're shooting in there, they're shooting in there," end quote. Another person who was in his sign shop, sorry, I just kicked my table. Another person who was in his sign shop located next to the Eagle Cafe that was connected to the Xerox building by the name of Earl Sameo, he reported seeing a Xerox worker crouched down yelling, quote, "I think that's him," end quote. Earl looks and sees a man walking across the back lot, past the loading docks, and towards the Xerox fans, which is the area that Byron had parked in that morning. And just like Catherine Ling, Earl stated how calm the man looked. Earl even said, quote, "You wouldn't have looked at him twice," end quote.
Mm.
Byron then backs the van out of its space. He makes a turn, pulls out of the parking lot, turns left onto an access road, then left onto Alakawa Street toward Dillingham Boulevard. And this is the same time frame when Arthur Clayton, who was a project manager for what was called White Entertainment Consultants, he reported pulling into the parking lot and seeing around 7 Xerox employees outside. He then reported seeing a manager come out, and he claimed the manager was saying, quote, "6 people dead," end quote.
Mm.
So that means that between 8 o'clock and 8:05, that's all it took. 5 minutes to senselessly kill 7 innocent people. And those 7 people were, and I'm going to do my best to pronounce these names right, and I'm sorry if I get it wrong. If I do, please feel free to correct me. But those 7 people were Jason Balatico, Melvin Lee, Ronald Teoka, Ronald Kawami, Ford Kanira, John Sakamoto, and Peter Mark. At 8:07 a.m., the ambulance was called. Police and ambulance are dispatched to the scene. By 8:10, the first radio broadcast about the shooting goes out on KSSK radio. and it was broadcasted on a popular drive time show called Perry and Price. By 8:11 a.m., the police arrive and find 5 victims in the conference room and 2 men in a second-story room. They also found over 20 bullet casings. One source said 28, so just in case, I'm putting it in here. Then they then issue an all-points bulletin, which triggered a citywide manhunt, and it would be carried out live on the Honolulu television stations. By 8:25 a.m., Ronald Kawami is officially pronounced deceased. By 8:30 a.m., Officer James Badset, who was a 20-year veteran of the Honolulu Police Department, is given the information and was advised that the suspect might still be in the area. He was given a mugshot of Byron, and Vadset and some other officers are sent to the Xerox headquarters in Hawaii in fear that the suspect may be headed there next. By 8:32 a.m., Jason Balatico is officially pronounced deceased. 9 a.m., Byron's dad is informed of what Byron did and that he's a suspect for 7 murders and 1 attempted murder, and they taped off his house and surrounded the area with heavily armed police officers in case Byron tried to go home. 9:45 a.m., a green minivan is spotted and reported sitting alongside the single-lane road of Makiki Heights Drive, which leads to the Hawaii Nature Center. Police were notified. Vadset intercepts the transmission. 9:55 a.m., Vadset arrives and he's told where Byron is parked. Officers in Vadset see and identify the van as belonging to Byron. They set up surrounding parameters to block the van in, and families in the homes surrounding the areas are evacuated and a standoff begins. By 10:35 a.m., Byron's brother Dennis is brought to Makiki Heights to attempt to talk Byron into surrendering. 10:39 a.m., it's officially confirmed there were 7 victims fatally shot. 11 a.m., police begin negotiations with Brian. 1:20 a.m., police at Byron's dad's exit the house with some evidence. That evidence would be 11 handguns, 5 rifles, and 2 shotguns that they found in a safe, and all of them were registered to Byron. By 2:30 p.m., all of the victims' families have been notified. By 2:49 p.m., Byron agrees to surrender. By 2:50 p.m., Byron is arrested and a 9mm handgun is found in the van. Byron's trial began on May 15, 2000. He was charged with 7 counts of second-degree murder and 1 count of first-degree murder and 1 attempted murder charge. Byron attempted to plead not guilty by reason of insanity. On June 13, 2000, the jury denied the insanity plea, thank God, and found him guilty of the 7 murders and guilty of the attempted murder for co-worker Steve Matsuda, who he attempted to shoot but was able to get away.
Okay.
On August 8, 2000, he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole for each victim to run consecutively, leading to Hawaii's largest amount of years sentenced to one individual, and the terms were to be served back to back. He was also ordered to pay $500 in restitution and $70,000 to the Crime Victim Compensation Fund, so that money would go to the families of the victims. I'm pretty sure that Hawaii has no death penalty, so I'm pretty sure he would have gotten it if they did, but in this case, I can safely say the word unfortunately.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, Hawaii does not have the death penalty, so they gave him the max that they could give him with the state that he was in.
Yeah.
So now let's end the case by remembering the victims. Again, I'm going to say their names the best I can. Jason Christopher Balatico, born June 3rd, 1966 in Honolulu. He was just about to be promoted to manager, which would have made him one of Xerox's youngest managers at just 33 years young. He was described as playful, loving, happy, devoted to his wife and their kids, driven. He was known to be a bit of a jokester. He had an impenetrable love for life, according to those who knew him. He was also described as being smart, very smart, especially when it came to computers, and he had been with the company for 8 years. He had 2 children. Next, we'll talk about Melvin Watung Lee, born on December 26, 1940. He was 58 years old at the time of the shooting, and he had worked for Xerox for 32 years.
Wow.
He was the field service manager. His wife's name was Anne, and he had two sons, Scott and Blaine, and he had a daughter whose name is Melanie. He was looking forward to retirement, which he was very close to, so he could golf and spend time with his loved ones.
Mm-hmm.
Ronald Masuo Katoka, or Kataoka. I'll say it both ways because Google gave it to me both ways. I'm trying my best to say it right. Born November 22nd, 1948 in Honolulu County. He had a wife and a daughter, and he had been at Xerox for 27 years at the time of his murder.
Dang.
Yeah. Every one of these victims had been there for a while.
Yeah.
He was described as a family man and kind and always had a smile on his face. He was also described as gentle, never raising his voice. He was described as a great father and an all-around good guy. He was 50 years old.
Mm.
Ronald Kiyoshi Kawami, born November 29th, 1944. He had a son and a daughter, and he had worked at Xerox for 30 years. He too loved to play golf, and he was described as someone who loved people. He had a very tight-knit group of friends. He was very much loved and very much missed, and he was 54 years old. Ford Kazuhiko Kanehira, I hope I said that right. He was born September 3rd, 1958 in Honolulu County. He married his high school sweetheart. Her name was Lorna L. Perella, and they married on August 29th, 1981. They had one son, and he had been at Xerox for 19 years. He was described as a happy person. His cousin Chester said Ford was, quote, childlike and innocent, end quote, and, quote, happy-go-lucky, end quote. And others described him as a devoted family man, extremely committed to his wife and son. He was just 41 years old at the time of his murder. John Kiji Sakamoto was born on April 23rd, 1963 in Honolulu County. His wife's name was Susan, and they had a son named Dane and a daughter named Brooke. He worked for Xerox for 10 years, and he was an avid fisherman. He was described as a devoted father, loving and wonderful husband, and loved ones talked about how much he loved being in his boat on the water. He was only 36 years old at the time of his murder. And lastly, Peter Brent Mark, born February 2nd, 1953 in Honolulu County. And actually, he and Ford Kanehira was one of the other victims. They actually attended the same private electronics school together, and they were in the same class.
Oh.
Yeah. He was described as fun, entertaining, eccentric, and charming. He was described as a bit of a health food nut. He loved going to the beach, bicycling, dancing, and he loved being on the ocean. He too was described as a devoted father and easy to get along with. His name was Karen, and they had 2 sons, and he worked for Xerox for 19 years, and he was 46 years old at the time of his murders. So just an awful, awful, senseless tragedy. All of these men taken way too soon for no reason at all. But that was my case on the Xerox murders, and hopefully ending it with the rememberings of the victims will help keep their names in your minds a little longer so they remember it a little better, hopefully.
Well, thank you for that. It was definitely terrible.
That was a heavy one for me.
Yeah.
Because, a lot of these men were around the same age as, like, my husband and your husband. It's like I couldn't imagine, him just going to work one day and then, like, something like this happening. And then,
oh, God, no.
Like, I couldn't imagine that. Just awful. And for nothing. For nothing. Anyway.
Yeah, it's pretty no reason for it whatsoever. But I wonder, is like, why did they only get it? Which I mean, I know he's in there for the rest of his life, multiple lifetimes, but I wonder why they didn't get him for first degree murder because he planned this out, didn't he?
I mean, he did. I mean, I guess he did in the sense that he had been threatening to do it for many years. I don't know why it was. He did get charged on one count of first degree murder because I think that his supervisor, which I was Melvin Lee, I think he was the intended target. Um, and I think that his anger got the best of him on all the rest. I think it started with his
Oh,
I think it started with his focus being Melvin, and then he just, with feeling like he was being bullied by his other coworkers, I think he just lost it and just
okay.
rampaged. That's what I got out of reading the details of the case. Because I too was curious why he got first degree for one and then second degree for. I mean, he did get 7 counts of second degree, so he did get technically charged twice for one person, like two different
Yeah.
charges. Um, but I too was curious why, and that was, I don't know that that's why, but that's what I personally perceived out of it.
Okay.
I don't know,
Well,
but
okay.
either way, horrific case.
Yeah, there was another question I had, but it left my brain and just walked out.
Must be in your 40s.
Hmm. Not at all. That's gonna bother me now.
Was it about one of the victims, or was it about?
I really don't know.
I don't know either.
Sorry, but again, thank you.
I
Like you
don't,
said, they should definitely be remembered. So
yeah, just awful, awful case. But thank thank you guys for listening and for supporting us. We really appreciate it. If you like what we do and you want to hear more of our content, see more of our content, give us a like, a share, a subscribe, a follow. That way you can get notifications for all of our new stuff that we have coming out. We try to do two episodes a week right now is our goal. We do have really busy months coming up, so hopefully we don't miss any, but if we do, just know we'll catch up to it.
yep.
But hopefully we won't. We're trying to stay as on the ball as possible. Um,
Yeah,
hopefully we're not. What was that?
I was gonna say we're hoping worst case scenario is this. What we're doing right now.
Yeah, we're also hoping that, we don't have to do it this way all the time
Yeah.
for the next couple of months, but we're going to do whatever we have to do to get the episodes out to you guys, because if we say we're going to do it, we want to commit to that and do it
Right.
the best that we can. So, anyway, other than that, that's our time for tonight, guys. We really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you.
I'm not even going to try to end it with the.
Well, you can say it.
Well, no, because then I can't say we are, because then we're not both saying it.
But we both still are. So
How about I say one word and then you say the last 2 words? It'd be like a compilation thing.
I
Well, they
don't
know
feel
they
like
know
it.
who they're watching. It's fine. They caught the beginning. They heard it there.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Okay.
We'll do it next time. Sorry, my face was so close to the camera. Is that weird? Was
No,
I
I
like
don't feel
really,
that bad.
was I like really up on the camera?
You are now.
Can you see up my nose?
No.
Oh,
Do you want people to see up your nose?
no. I was just curious if you could. Well, I guess if you could, they could, huh? Oh.
Yeah. But you kind of were down underneath the blue Render the Darkness pod thing. So
All of
your
me
nose,
was?
not your nose. So
Oh,
whenever you did
I was
that,
like, dang, is my face that little? I have a tiny face.
Get a big face. Get a big face.
I guess if I did this, I would. Oh, look, that actually works. Sit back and do that. Come on, do it. Come on,
What,
do
to
it.
you?
No, to you.
Oh,
Do it to your own
me?
head. Yeah.
Mine doesn't work that way. Hello.
Oh, mine's playing out perfect.
Yeah, mine.
All right, we're still recording.
Sorry.
That's fine. I kind of got us up on that. But anyways, all right, I'm gonna end this. Bye. Good night.
Bye.